next Tuesday.
Bad shape.
Yeah.
One on vacation and
Brent
then
thought
I went to work out.
not that long, a couple of years, but from all
But I'll be
time.
there for the selectmen's meeting.
All right, let's go ahead and call things to order. First of all, a reminder that these sessions are recorded by a citizen. They are available on YouTube. You've been so warned. I was just going to take a minute or two to go over the minutes. Anybody wants to weigh in?
Well, I guess we were talking, I'm sorry, am I talking now?
The chair recognizes, just kidding.
No, I just mentioned the draft before, if there was any knowledge of the locks being, on the dam, on the Lake Warren Dam, being lifted.
I'll find out though.
I have one thing.
Go ahead.
The minutes of the meeting of September 22nd, 2012. I think it should be 2015.
We're really slow. Sometimes it takes years.
I think it's supposed to be Friday and Saturday nights or Saturday and Sunday nights. I think the ambulance has trouble. Is Jessica still here?
He has had to take off,
Okay.
but it is Friday and Saturday nights.
Okay. And, okay.
All right, then I think I will move that we accept the minutes as corrected.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye. All right, update on the police chief search. We met with the candidate last week. We discussed some issues related to pay and to benefits, and we came to an agreement with him. So what we have done is drafted a conditional offer letter to provide to him. It was recommended that we bounce that off of our attorney first. So we bounced it off the free attorney. He said, you better talk to the one you pay money for first. So we're waiting for something to come back with that. In the same process, we're just having him draft a offer letter, period. So not only will he provide the conditional offer letter that says, in a nutshell, it says this, based on our conversation, we want to offer you X amount of dollars to be our chief, and these are the things we talked about. This is contingent upon you being certified as New Hampshire police officer, some things like that. That's a conditional offer. The actual offer will be the formal offer. The candidate will have to give 2 weeks' notice, but that's kind of where the offer letter stands. As far as other things that the applicant is having to go through, he has to provide information to the New Hampshire Police Board of Standards and Training. I think that's what it is. To demonstrate the training that he has had to go through as a officer in the state that he is from. So what they do is they say, okay, here's all the requirements for state A, here's what New Hampshire requires, let's make sure that they match up. If you've had your training for domestic violence down there, then great, you don't have to take it up here. We know that he's going to have to pass what they call the law package, which is all the differences, all the things that make New Hampshire law unique to any other state, and how law works here. So we know he'll do that. He just wants to make sure that they don't come back and say, we need you to go through the academy again. That would probably be a bit of a deal breaker for him. However, talking to the standards and training folks, they can never remember that ever happening. So that's the process we're in. He's having to get all his records from 15 plus years of police service in another state, specifically all the training records and things like that. So it's taken a little bit of time. We discussed today whether we could do some of these things in parallel. So he has put in an offer. He has filled out an employment application which says that we may investigate your background and things like that. Can we begin by investigating his background? Can we begin that process, realizing there's some other things that are pertinent to police that's a little unique, but can we go ahead and get started with some of those sorts of things?
I don't see why not.
I don't either.
Yep.
So we're going to try to get some of this stuff going in parallel, so we're not queued up for things.
Timeline approximate.
I think I'm always the optimist, so I'm still saying we're going to have something finished up by the end of the year.
Do you want to get the letter back from the attorney? Because I think that's kind of key right now.
In a sense, it's a checkbox. We've already sat down across the table and agreed on everything. It's just the formalization of that.
Handshakes.
Yeah. Fist bumps. All kinds of things. So that's kind of where things are at. But it is looking good. And hey, he's still interested in the job, which is a good thing.
Do you want me to move forward with setting up the background check and the...
Background check, yes.
Okay.
Let's do that one first, and then we'll worry about when to queue up the site and everything else. I think you'd probably feel better at least having an offer letter before we do that.
Yeah. So I haven't got this formalized yet, but an outside agency, police department, was going to do it for us, hopefully, as soon as I hear back from that chief. And they may have a whole series of forms that have to be filled out, so I'll get that ball rolling. Does that sound like a plan?
Just remind me of being in the military. You have a form for that? Police the same way it's got.
There's a form for everything,
They
so
work it out. Okay.
I'll get going on that then. I'll tell you, okay.
All right. Thank you.
Is part of the background check a credit check as well?
It's more extensive than anything you or I have ever been through.
Okay.
That's a good question, Tom. I do believe that when we went through everything from the state, that it did mention the credit check.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've had some questions about, if all this stuff takes some time, do we think that any of these things might not be, for example, some departments don't do polygraph checks. And I think the general feeling on the select board at least is that we want to go through everything we possibly can. You just want to make sure you've done your due diligence, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
And he's still employed.
Yes.
Polygraph's pretty much useless, huh? Haven't they been proven pretty inaccurate?
That's always been my belief. One time I went to apply for a Radio Shack. This was years and years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. And they did polygraphs back then, completely illegal, been thrown out by the courts and stuff like that. But I started talking to some friends of mine, and they're like, yeah, when I applied for them, I put a thumbtack under my big toe. So when they ask you the control questions, your levels go way up. I'm like, well, I hadn't really planned on thinking I had to lie to work at a Radio Shack. It was an interesting story. So I have no idea.
Your opinion. They have a use in law enforcement for investigations if you have a specific crime you're looking at. And for hiring, there are a lot of agencies that don't use them, but there are a lot of agencies that do, and there's a place for it. I mean, they do have a good. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's just enough in the investigative background check. There's all these little pieces that they put together, and that's just one of the many.
And I think the difference would be is we're not trying to convict the guy.
Yeah.
by using the evidence of a polygraph, trying to understand
Right.
who he is and how his mind ticks.
I think Marcello said it very well, that it's a tool in the whole package there,
Yeah.
so it
Absolutely.
has to be looked at that way.
But personally, I would agree, you probably don't want to send somebody to fail for the rest of their life based on a polygraph. That might be a little question. All right, so that's pretty much that on it. HR committee, we have you.
We're all set, everything's ready, it's just next week, you come in Thursday, Tuesday, 13th.
So a question we had for you guys, would it be possible for you to provide anything you have on the police sections early? Could that be separated out? Could that be emailed to us?
Yeah, I mean, there's only, on the compensation and salaries, there's just one line item. Yeah, we can.
Okay, that'd be great. Since we're,
Who should that be emailed to?
I have it. I can forward it.
never mind, we got it. Okay, Rock's got it. Well, talk again, I just wanted to make sure that, and Rock was in on those conversations, Rock being a member of the HR committee, we just wanted to, I think Joel and I were kind of curious about how we stood salary-wise and things like that. Make sure we were in the ballpark. EMS, go ahead.
Sorry, can I?
Sorry.
I was gonna wait till my turn at the end, but it's kind of related to what I was hoping to talk about tonight. For salaries for the police department, I wasn't sure if the selectmen had a time frame on when the police department was gonna be looked at for raises, if that was still gonna happen. Was there? Can you give me an update on?
They have not had and did not receive any increase yet this year, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And there was money budgeted for them to get a raise for,
I don't think there was, because I think the thought was that, and I'm not positive, I have to go back and look at notes in minutes, but I think Penny was a new position, and Roger had a big bump up, I think, when he finished training, so I'm not sure we included anything as far as that went. I don't recall for sure, but.
we'll double check that. But I would say for your first round of budgeting, go ahead and include something. We'll look at the spend for this year, we'll look at what the budget looks like for next year, and we can make a decision. But I would say, yeah, go ahead and put in some percentage, realizing.
What I'd like to do for 2015 is request a percentage increase for Officer Landry and Penny of 4%. If without having to wait for 2016, obviously. You were mentioning the pay increases for Officer Landry. That increase, and there was a lot of discussion about that. I don't remember when that happened. I can't remember, but that increase had to do with him getting off of probation and getting on his own and completing the training and all that. So there was no increase on a regular.
He was sort of on a probationary rate when he started.
Correct. That's
Contingent upon him.
Exactly. Finishing his training, finishing FTO training. So when I say training, I'm talking about academy and then field training to be allowed to work on his own. So that was the bump increase for him, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a significant increase compared to what he started at. So as a department head, I just wanted to present that to the selectmen that I'd like you guys to consider that for 2015.
One quick question, Carol, you might know this, the $12,000 that was put in the general wage, wasn't that for all the employees?
3%.
That was for all the employees of the town, or that wasn't on the budget? That was,
Yeah, I don't recall how exactly we calculated that, so I have to go back and look at the notes and stuff, so.
yeah.
There should be money in, I thought that was an across the board 10% increase for.
Yeah, I don't think we included the PD in that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I didn't know if that.
But in other examples, we, unbeknownst to us at the time, 8% went to,
Right.
or a considerable amount went to the highway, so there's some slush there. So if you want to make say just put it into your 2016, and then when we talk about 2016, bring it up for 2015, we can get Joel's feedback there. And then we can make the decision.
Sound good?
Alright. Alright. Where did we get?
We got the EMSG and then we never got there.
HR, we never got there. EMS, great.
We had a trip out to Valley Fire in Bradford on Friday, which was, I thought, a very productive and informative meeting. Did a lot of thinking out loud, a lot of brainstorming, went through a lot of options on a truck, what level of details we needed to be included, and they made suggestions like, don't just say a light bar, be more specific, doesn't necessarily have to be the brand, but like, how big do you want it, dimensions or the number of lights or something like that in it, so that when it goes out for quotes, you get an apples to apples type of quotes. They also recommended that they understood that they were not going to be the only people bidding on it, and they suggested sending out preliminary specs to manufacturers for input before we went out with an RFP, a request for proposal. So we've since talked about timing, where they need to be at in order to do that and get something to you guys for the budget for next year. It's kind of interesting because they said the delivery time for them can be as much as 14 months from the order. It takes them 7 to 8 months just to get the chassis in from the manufacturer to build a fire truck. So it's out there a way, so we have to keep that in mind. So I asked the fire department to make a list of what equipment was coming off the existing vehicles and versus what would be needed. We will be looking at FEMA grants. I don't know whether or not we'd be able to put one together for a truck. The process starts in November. Apparently they've changed their review process. FEMA has, according to George Moore, to make these more equitable to smaller departments. But he gave me, I never made it to that FEMA program, but he gave me all the PowerPoint from it, some 80 some odd slides. And it looks like there's a lot to the process, but certainly something that we ought to take a look at in terms of, something small, at least to get started on trying to write grants or something like that, even if it's a thermal imaging camera or whatever, but, it'd be interesting to make that effort. So that's where MSG is at. We are meeting at sometime on Thursday.
Still at Vilas?
No. It's supposed to be at the village station, but I guess there's some people that want to watch the WR at 9, so I'm not sure if that's going to change in terms of somebody's going to see TV or the time's going to change or what, so I'll keep you
Gotcha.
posted.
Yeah.
There was an email that went back and forth today. I think I left you off the copy of it, so.
I think I got one iteration of that, but
Okay.
yeah. Okay? Yes.
Way back, I don't know how long ago, there was conversation about a new truck would require a fire station in the village to be rehabbed because it wasn't long enough, the bay wasn't long enough.
No, the door's not high enough, is the issue.
The door is-
You can work around the bay length.
But you can't work around the height.
It's going to be difficult. So we've been trying to get people to quote raising the door, and I've had a structural engineer that's looked at it, and I've talked to, I called 3 contractors, one of which was today, and so he raised the door at the survey station. That's a wood building where this is a steel and cement steel and stone building, so hopefully he can handle something like that, or can point me to somebody. But Bergeron is one of the companies. They are very busy, but they said they would get back to us to get us a quote at some point. And the other was Blanca Bailey, and I know they're busy, and I haven't heard back from that one.
Is there any way to swap trucks, put the truck up?
No, the other one won't fit.
Won't fit either. Never mind.
Wow, that's good. It's a
Throw in the tires, you know.
tear them down with the list.
Yeah, cut grooves into cement.
That's what they often do with the trucks.
Throw in the
Get stuck
floor.
in the garages and stuff like that, under bridges.
I think that's probably less expensive than that. It's a nice little ramp that goes down in there. Okay, anything else? AABC?
I got that one too. Yeah. We did not have a quorum last week, as a couple of you know. We did discuss a lot of things. Hopefully, the 2 of you get that hit list that I sent out. Okay.
Did you get a copy of that too?
I only got a comment from one person between the select board and the ABC, so I'm going to assume no news is good news in terms of what was on it. General Government Subcommittee is gonna try to expand and look at some more things such that they haven't covered. We're gonna urge them to do that, planning and zoning and some of the other line items that other committees aren't looking at. Jonathan Wiles is still looking for new software in place of the MuniSmart software to make it more user-friendly and be able to get more info out of it. And he's also looking to see what else we can get out of MuniSmart. We were wondering on the status on pay-as-you-throw, which is obviously on the list, and I'm just curious to know that what's up with the PD budget in terms of, is that going to be discussed tonight or the 20th at this point? All right, and then we had some revisions to the ambulance dollars too, in terms of, we bumped them back up a little bit. Jesse walked off with my good copy, but do you want to talk about that now, Chris, or a little later?
I think we can. Do you have more than one copy? Should we?
I just have one copy. It did not copy well. It's not terribly readable, unfortunately. We bumped up the, well, it's still, both of these, the negative signs doesn't show. It still comes in 3% under last year's budget, which is 9% less than what was originally proposed, but a little bit higher than what Tom had countered with. We bumped it back up the paramedics slightly. That will change from last week. Because of that, well, actually, no, that was another one. We also bumped up the, what the heck is it? I'm sorry, that was a suggestion. We bumped that one up. We bumped back up the ambulance repairs at Glenn's suggestion, and also put a little bit more money in new equipment. I don't think there was any room for a hiccup in the numbers that got cut last week, and I also don't think there was any cushion in terms of the way the RSA requires that to be. So, the 2015, oh shucks, I don't have it in front of me. I don't have what 2015.
That's okay. But let me just ask a couple basic questions. This does allow Jesse to do his proposed SPIF for people willing to
Yeah,
work
it's
weekends.
still in there.
That's included.
Yep.
You've increased the number of, the amount of money for new equipment for him.
Yep.
You've increased the amount of money for ambulance repairs to some degree. And it's still under this year's budget.
Yep, by 3%. Yeah, Tom had countered with, we had put in 17.2 for the ambulance wages. Tom countered with 15.7, and we rounded it to 1,600.
Right.
I wasn't covering,
Yeah, I know. I'm closing.
No, it was.
I call it a counter.
Yeah.
So that caused the FICA to adjust slightly by $16. The paramedic expense had been dropped to, I can't tell if that's 73 or 7,500, and we raised it to 8,500. Put a little bit of extra cushion in there. Ambulance repair had been bumped by 500, and we jumped into equipment by 250. So 2015 budget was requested at 3518, and this came back in at 33,956, I believe, or 33,950. So
All right.
3% under.
So with Jesse's blessing on that, and I guess some communication with Linda and or Kelly, then we'll consider that his revised budget going in for round 2, and that's great. Yep. And I appreciate all the work you guys have done, working with Jesse on that, and with all the departments. I mean, it's been good. As long as numbers go down, I'm always a happy guy. Isn't that funny how that works?
There was one other thing from the ABC, that the reports that Linda puts out, I guess it's bi-weekly. Is it possible between now and the end of the year to get them weekly?
Yes.
I think that would be helpful.
So,
We can do that. We'd only pay all the bills and everything bi-weekly.
bi-weekly.
So there wouldn't be anything coming out of those accounts or being put, some of the deposits that probably won't affect, but we don't do bills that would be reflected on the budget, except for, so I'm,
thoughts? Glenn?
whatever.
I gotta look at Glenn on this because he's been dealing with this long.
The only thing I noticed, which was last week, was that the wages didn't get included that week because of the way the payday fell. So we're actually behind on our numbers. I forgot to email Linda today just to kind of get an updated one that would include those labor hours, because I.
Is that because it actually falls, the payday fell on October?
Correct, it
Oh,
fell on a
right,
new month.
right.
So I didn't get those included, and David's budget is getting tight, and I want to keep an eye on it, because he can chew through a lot of labor up pretty fast.
Okay, so let's just say, let's make that a weekly report. You okay with that? Okay, let's just bump the weekly through the budget cycle and possibly through winter.
Just to kind of keep an eye on stuff.
Yeah, I think that might be a good policy. We'll look at some future point to whether we roll that back to every 2 weeks. All right, one thing I want to discuss on the AABC stuff, we've talked about this idea of a hit list, punch list, whatever you want to call it. You build a new house, you go through it, and you find all these things that are wrong. You and the contractor write them both down so everybody knows what it is, and then he can check them off as they get taken care of. I think the AABC, I'm not sure who brought this up, but I agree with them that it's a good idea for us to have these things. So last year, going through our budget, we identified crazy stuff. Why is this number like this? Well, we should check into that and see why it is. And then this year, going through the budget, I hear the same question being asked a year later. So the idea is to maintain some sort of a list that we go through and everything gets an answer. The answer may be the selectmen like it the way it is, and that's the end of the debate. You know what it is? Or we're going to make this change, or we're going to refer this to somebody else, or we need to talk more about it, whatever it happens to be. I wanted to bring it up here because I was debating the idea of making that available online as opposed to just us trying to maintain it within ourselves. Put it up on the website, have it being a living document that citizens can go to and see what's on there. And if they know something that they think should be on there, they can come to a selectmen's meeting and ask that it be added. I'd just like to throw that open for any discussion, debate, pros, cons.
I don't see where it could be a bad thing.
I don't either.
It's just more transparency, people seeing you do your job, and it's a good thing, I think.
Okay.
I think there's one, possibly two things that maybe need to be added to it. A date that these things will put on here, so that as we add things, you can see, you know.
Same thing.
Or,
So many
I wanted to
years.
sit
Yeah.
Rock and
Yeah,
I,
answer this stuff.